The wind was cold that night. It howled through the empty streets of the human quarter on the alien world of Valara. Most people were inside, asleep, or watching the soft glow of their holoscreens. But John Carter was still awake. He sat at his small workbench, fixing an old engine part under the yellow light of his lamp. The sound of tools and the hum of his heater were the only noises in his home. That was when he heard it. 3 slow knocks on the metal door, not loud, but heavy. As if each knock carried weight, John froze. No one visited him this late. He lived at the edge of the colony, far from the busy streets. The nearest neighbor was 2 blocks away, and they never came without calling first. He put down the wrench. The heater clicked in the silence. Another set of 3 knocks came, just as slow. John's skin prickled. He thought maybe it was a prank. Or worse, maybe someone was in trouble. He stood up and walked to the door. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he looked through the small round peephole. At first, he saw only shadows. Then, slowly, a shape moved into the light. A tall figure stood there. The figure's skin shimmered under the pale moonlight. Not human, an alien woman, her face sharp, but strangely beautiful. Her long cloak was wet from the cold night air. 2 small shapes clung to her side. Children, they looked up at him with glowing eyes. John unlocked the door, but kept the chain in place. Yes, he asked. The woman's voice was soft but clear. I will warm your bed, human. My children need a father. The words didn't make sense to him at first. They sounded too direct, too strange. He opened the door a little wider. What did you say? The woman stepped closer. Her eyes were like molten gold, unblinking. I said, my children need a father, and I will warm your bed. John's mind raced. Was this a joke? A trick? He had heard stories of alien customs. Some were friendly, some were dangerous. But no one had ever said something like this to him before. The 2 children stared at him. One was holding a small bundle wrapped in fabric. The other kept close to the woman's leg. They looked tired, cold, and maybe even afraid. I think you have the wrong house, John said carefully. But the woman shook her head. No, human. I know who you are. You fix things. You live alone. You are not bound to anyone. John didn't like how much she knew about him. How do you know my name? He asked. The woman's voice dropped lower. Because I have been watching. Because I have no one else to ask. The wind outside grew stronger. The cold crept into the small space between the door and the frame. John wanted to close the door. But something in her tone stopped him. It wasn't a threat, it was something else. Desperation. Her cloak shifted, and he saw a mark on her arm. A thin silver band with alien symbols engraved on it. He had seen that symbol before. It belonged to the Tirith species, a proud people who rarely mixed with humans. If she was Tirith, then coming here to him was unusual. What do you want from me? John asked. Her answer came without pause. I need protection. If I do not find a protector, my children will be taken. The law will claim them. I will lose them. John stared at her. He didn't know much about Tirith law, but he had heard rumors that widows had little power if their mate died. They had to join another household or give up their young. The woman's golden eyes seemed to catch the dim light from his lamp. They will come for us soon. I cannot fight them alone, she said. John's heartbeat quickened. Who was they? And why come to him, a human stranger? The children moved restlessly. The smaller one let out a small whimper. John noticed their clothes were worn and their feet were bare. Whoever they were running from. They had been moving for a while. I don't even know your name, John, said finally. The woman nodded slowly. I am Vera. My mate is dead, and now they hunt me. The wind rattled the door. Somewhere in the distance, John thought he heard a faint, low hum. It didn't sound like the wind. It sounded Mechanical Vera's head turned sharply toward the sound. Her eyes narrowed. "They are close," she whispered, before John could ask more. She stepped forward, pushing the door open wider, the warmth of her body and the faint, strange scent of alien flowers filled the small space. "Please," she said, her voice trembling now. "If you do not take us in, we will not survive the night." John's hands tightened on the edge of the door. His instincts screamed to keep out of trouble. But the look in her eyes told him that trouble had already found him. The 3 slow knocks had not been random. They were the beginning of something else. Something dangerous. Something that would change his life. John stepped aside, letting the woman and her 2 children inside. The door closed behind them with a dull metallic sound. The cold night air was cut off. But the tension inside the small home grew heavier. The woman lowered her hood. Her hair, if it could be called hair, was a mass of thin silver threads that shimmered under the lamplight. Her skin was pale blue, smooth like glass. Her eyes, still bright gold, moved slowly around the room, studying every corner, every tool on the workbench, every shadow. The 2 children clung to her. The older one looked around with wide eyes. The younger one kept hiding its face, only peeking when it thought John wasn't watching. "My name is Vera," the woman said, her voice soft but steady. She placed a hand gently on the older child's shoulder. "This is Rel," she said. Then she touched the smaller one. "And this is Mina." John nodded slowly. He still didn't understand why they were here. "Why me?" he asked. "There are plenty of Tirith homes in your quarter. Why not go to them?" Vera's golden eyes flickered. "They would not help me. They would call the enforcers, and the enforcers would take my children away." John leaned back against the workbench, crossing his arms. "Why? What law says that?" Vera took a deep breath. "In our laws, a mother cannot keep her young if she cannot provide shelter and protection. When my mate was alive, we were safe. When he died, the law marked me as unfit. A widow without a protector is incomplete." John frowned. "So you need a protector, like a husband." Vera tilted her head slightly. "Yes, in the eyes of my people. If you live in my home, share my space. If you stand beside me when they come, they will not take Rel." And Mina. John felt the weight of her words, but another thought nagged at him. "You said your mate died in an accident," he said slowly. That was the truth. Her gaze dropped for the first time. Her silver hair shifted forward, hiding part of her face. "He died. But not in the way the records say. It was not an accident. It was murder." The word hung in the air like smoke. John's chest tightened. "Murder. By who?" Vera's eyes met his again. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "By the Varka Syndicate." John had heard the name before. The Varkas were not a single species. They were a mix of alien criminals. Smugglers, extortionists, killers. They controlled parts of the alien quarter that humans were told never to enter. If the Syndicate wanted someone dead, they rarely failed. "They wanted my mate to pay them." Vera continued. "When he refused, they made him vanish. His body was never returned. The next day they came to my door. They said I had 3 nights to find a protector, or my children would belong to them." John felt a chill crawl up his spine. It wasn't just the law she feared. It was the Syndicate. And now she had come to him, a human living on the edge of town, a man with no family, no ties, and no power. Why not go to the human authorities? John asked. Vera let out a humorless laugh. "They do not step into the alien quarter. They would tell me to follow Tirith law. They would tell me to obey." John rubbed the back of his neck. The more he heard, the more dangerous this sounded. "You do understand," he said carefully. "If I agree to this, I'd be in danger too." Vera's gaze was steady. "Yes, but you already are, the moment you opened your door tonight." "They will know." John's eyes narrowed. How would they know? Vera stepped closer. Her voice was almost a whisper now. There are eyes everywhere. Walls that listen, shadows that speak. If they saw me walk to your door, they are already watching you. The children stood silently between them. Rel finally spoke for the first time. Will you help us? He asked in a small voice. Mina clung to his arm, her golden eyes wide with fear. John looked at them. He saw the tiredness in their faces, the way their small hands gripped each other like it was the only thing holding them together. He wasn't the kind of man to get involved in other people's troubles, but something about the way they stood there made it hard to say no. I don't know what I can do, John said honestly, but I can't send you back out there tonight. Vera gave a slow nod. For tonight, that is enough, she said. John set up blankets in the corner for the children. He offered Vera the small couch. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the heater. Outside, the wind still howled. But somewhere beneath that sound, John thought he heard something else. A faint, distant hum. It was the same noise he had heard before. Mechanical, steady, patient, like something waiting. Morning came slowly on Valara. The pale sunlight pushed through the dusty windows of John's small home. Outside, the streets were still quiet. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of heated water and alien spice. John woke to the sound of soft movement. Vera was at the small counter, preparing something that gave off a strange sweet scent. Her silver thread hair caught the light, almost glowing. The children sat quietly at the table, their golden eyes following him as he moved. He rubbed his face and poured himself a mug of water. His body ached from sleeping in the chair. The events of the night before felt like a dream, but the woman and her children were still here, real and silent. Sleep well? Vera asked. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Not really. John admitted, I kept thinking about what you told me. She set a small bowl of food in front of him. It looked like a mix of fruit and steaming grain. Eat, she said. You will need strength if you decide to help me. John hesitated. I didn't say I would, he reminded her. I said you could stay the night. Vera sat across from him, her hands folded neatly. Her children stayed silent, almost like they knew this was an important moment. You have a choice, Vera said, but not much time to make it. If you agree to be my protector, you will live in my home. You will be part of my household in the eyes of the Tirith. That will make you my mate. John blinked. That sounds more than just help. It is survival, she said simply. I can feed you, give you shelter, and I will keep you warm, she added without hesitation. In return, you will stand beside me when they come, and they will come. Her words hung in the air like a warning. John leaned back in his chair. You keep saying they. You mean the Syndicate? Vera's expression didn't change. Yes, and the enforcers. And anyone who sees a widow as an opportunity. John frowned. You make it sound like everyone is against you. Her golden eyes stayed locked on his. They are. That is why I am here. For a moment, John thought about refusing. It would be safer to tell her to find someone else. But then he remembered the sound from last night, that low mechanical hum. He wasn't sure if it was in his head or real, but his gut told him it meant trouble. What happens if I say no? He asked. Vera didn't blink. Then you will not see us again, and soon after. You will hear of 3 bodies found in the dark. 2 of them small. Her words were cold. But they weren't a threat. They were a fact. John felt the muscles in his jaw tighten. You think the Syndicate would kill children? I do not think, Vera said. I know. John stood and began pacing. He had lived alone for years, keeping away from trouble. Now trouble was sitting at his table. And worse, it had small golden eyes that looked at him like he was the only hope left. Why me? He finally asked again. There are other humans here. Yes, she said. But you are quiet. You are skilled. You know how to fix things, and you have no one they can use against you." Her words cut deep. John didn't have family on Valara, no friends who would notice if he disappeared. He was, in many ways, invisible, and maybe that was exactly why she had chosen him. Rel, the older child, suddenly spoke. "We can help too," he said. "We know the streets. We can warn you if bad people come." Mina nodded quickly, clutching a small carved figure in her hands. John looked between them and their mother. It was madness. He should refuse. But there was something in him, some stubborn spark, that hated the idea of walking away. He stopped pacing and faced Vera. "If I agree?" "We do this my way." Vera tilted her head. "What way is that?" "I don't bluff," John said. "If the Syndicate comes, I'm not just going to stand there. I'll fight, and I'll need tools, materials, time." Vera studied him for a moment, then she nodded. "If you stand with us, you will have what you need." John sighed, running a hand through his hair. "All right, I'll do it," he said finally. Rel's eyes lit up. Mina smiled faintly. Vera simply inclined her head. "Then we must move today," she said. "Before night comes, move." John asked, "Yes." She replied, "To my home." In the alien quarter, John's stomach tightened. He had heard the warnings about the alien quarter since his first day on Valara. Humans who went in after dark sometimes didn't come out at all. And now he was agreeing to live there. Vera stood and began gathering her few belongings. Her movements were quick, efficient. The children followed her lead without question. John felt like a man stepping onto a road that had no return. As they left his home, he caught sight of movement at the far end of the street. A shadow that didn't belong to the morning light. And then, faintly, he heard it again, that low. Mechanical hum, steady, patient, waiting. The sun hung low in the pale sky as John followed Vera and her children. The streets near his home were familiar. He knew every crack in the pavement, every flickering streetlight, but the path she took bent away from the human quarter. Each step pulled them deeper into unknown territory. They crossed an invisible line. John could feel it before he saw it. The air grew thicker, the colors around him more intense. Buildings leaned in close together, their walls covered in strange alien markings. The sound of human voices faded, replaced by soft whispers in languages he couldn't understand. Vera walked with purpose. Her silver thread hair caught the sunlight and scattered it into tiny sparks. Her children stayed close to her sides. Rel kept scanning the streets ahead. Mina clutched a carved figure in her small hands and glanced over her shoulder often. John noticed eyes watching them from shadowed doorways, some curious, others cold. A group of insect-like aliens paused their work to follow him with sharp, unblinking stares. A tall creature with long arms leaned against a wall, chewing something that made its mouth glow faintly. It didn't speak, but John felt the weight of its gaze. "This place doesn't like humans," John muttered. "It does not like outsiders." Vera corrected, "But if you are with me, they will not touch you." For now, the "for now" made John uneasy. Still, he kept walking. He had agreed to this, and now there was no turning back. They passed through a narrow alley where the walls were covered in pulsing lights. It looked like veins running through stone. John reached out to touch one, but Vera's hand stopped him instantly. "Do not touch the glow lines," she said sharply. "They are alive. Alive." John pulled his hand back quickly. He didn't ask more. Some things were better left unknown. Finally, they reached a street with fewer eyes watching. At the end stood a narrow building made of dark, polished stone. Strange curved shapes were carved into its surface. It seemed to hum faintly, like a giant sleeping animal. "This is my home," Vera said. She placed her hand on the carved symbols by the door. The stone rippled like water and slid open silently. John's instincts told him this was not normal technology. It felt older, more alive inside. The air was warm and carried a faint floral scent. Glowing plants hung from the ceiling, casting a soft golden light. The walls were lined with woven fabric that shimmered slightly as if moving on its own in the center of the main room sat a low table surrounded by cushions. Everything was alien. Yet there was a strange comfort in the space. The children immediately went to a corner where small beds were set up. Rel began sorting through a pile of strange toys made of wood, stone, and crystal. Mina crawled under her blanket, peeking out only to watch John. "You will stay in this room," Vera said, pointing to a side door. "It is small but private. You may keep your tools there." John stepped inside the room. It was barely large enough for a bed and a shelf. But it was clean, and the walls glowed faintly with soft light. He set his small bag down, feeling like a stranger in another world. Back in the main room, Vera was unpacking a bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside were small jars, strange metal tools, and what looked like dried flowers. John watched as she placed them carefully on a shelf. "These are from my mate," she said quietly. "They are all I have left of him." The moment hung heavy between them. John wanted to ask more about her husband, but before he could, Rel's voice cut in. "They're here." Vera's head snapped up. "How do you know?" she asked. "I saw them from the window," Rel said. "3 of them." Standing at the end of the street, watching, John moved to the small slit window and looked out. The street was quiet, but in the distance, 3 tall figures stood in the shadow of a wall. They didn't move, even from here. John could see their eyes faintly glowing, fixed directly on the house. "They will not come now," Vera said. "They wait for dark. That is their way." John felt the low mechanical hum again. It wasn't in his head. It was out there, carried on the air. "Is that sound 'em?" he asked. "Yes," she said simply. "It means they have marked us." John pulled away from the window. "If they come, we're not just going to sit here and let them in," he said firmly. Vera's eyes met his. "Then you must be ready. Once night falls, there will be no warning, and if they cross this threshold, they will not stop." John looked around this strange, warm room. It felt like a safe place now, but soon it would become a battleground. He took a deep breath and nodded. "Then we get ready." Outside, the 3 figures at the end of the street didn't move. The sun kept sinking, and the hum kept going, steady and patient, like something ancient, like something that had all the time in the world. Night fell over the alien quarter like a heavy blanket. The streets outside Vera's home sank into deep shadow. Only the soft golden glow from the hanging plants inside kept the darkness at bay. John sat near the door. His tools were spread out on the floor in front of him, a bundle of wires, an old battery, a metal pipe, and a small control panel he had salvaged from his workshop. He wasn't a soldier, but he knew machines, and if trouble came, machines could be made to bite back. Vera moved quietly around the room, her silver thread hair glimmering in the warm light. The children stayed in their corner, Rel watching John work with silent focus. Mina curled up under her blanket, clutching her carved figure like it could keep her safe. "Tell me about them," John said without looking up. "The Syndicate." Vera stopped moving. Her voice, when it came, was calm but sharp. "They are not one species. They are many. Bound by greed and blood, they control trade, streets, lives. If you owe them, you pay until you are empty. If you cannot pay, they take what they want. A home, a business, a life." John tightened a bolt on the metal pipe. "And your husband refused?" "Yes," she said. "He would not give them what they demanded, so they took him. They did not kill him quickly. They made sure others would hear his screams. Fear is their real currency." John's jaw clenched. Why the children? What would they want with them? Vera's eyes darkened. They take the young, sell them to families who cannot have their own, or train them to serve the Syndicate. Once taken, they are never seen again. John stopped working for a moment. The thought made his stomach twist. He looked at Rel and Mina. They were too quiet, too still. Children should not know this kind of fear. From outside came the low mechanical hum again. It had grown louder, closer. John stood and went to the narrow window. In the distance, he saw movement, shadows slipping between buildings. He counted at least 4, maybe 5. They weren't rushing. They were waiting, watching. "They'll try to scare us first," Vera said. "It is their way." They break the mind before they break the body. As if on cue, a sharp, metallic scraping echoed from the street. It was a long, slow sound, like claws dragging across stone. Mina whimpered under her blanket. Rel moved closer to his mother. John felt his muscles tense. They were making sure he knew they were there. "They think I'll give in," John muttered. Vera glanced at him. "They are not used to humans who stand." "Well," John said, "they picked the wrong human." He returned to his work, attaching the wires to the battery and securing the pipe near the doorframe. It wasn't much, but it would give anyone who tried to force their way in a shock they wouldn't forget. He placed another rig under the window if they broke through the glass. The burst of light would blind them long enough to react. Vera watched him work. "You prepare like a man who has done this before," she said. "I've fixed enough broken machines to know how to make them dangerous," John replied. The scraping sound came again. This time it was closer, followed by a soft tapping. Not on the street, on the walls. Something was climbing. John's eyes darted to the ceiling. "Do they come from above?" "They come from every direction," Vera said. "They test for weakness." Rel suddenly ran to the window. "They're gone," he said. John joined him. The street was empty. The shadows had melted into the darkness. "They'll be back," John said quietly. Vera nodded. "They will wait until the hour when most are asleep." When even the walls seemed to dream, the children tried to rest. Vera sat cross-legged on the floor, her gaze fixed on the door. John stayed near his tools. He could feel the tension in the air, like the pressure before a storm. Hours passed slowly. The hum came and went, sometimes close, sometimes far. Then, without warning, it stopped. The silence was worse than the sound. John's grip tightened on the metal wrench in his hand. A faint creak came from the roof, then another. Shadows slid across the faint light from the window. Vera's eyes narrowed. "They are here," she whispered. The first knock wasn't like the one on John's door the night he met Vera. This was sharp, fast, followed by another. Then a voice, low and rough. Speaking in a language John didn't understand, Vera answered in the same tongue. Her words clipped and cold. There was silence. Then the sound of claws on stone again. John's heart pounded. "They're testing us," he muttered. "Yes," Vera said. "They want to see if we will open the door. If we will give up without a fight." John looked at her. "They're going to find out that's not happening." He took his place near the door. His traps were ready. His hand steady in the dim golden light of Vera's home, he waited. And outside, the Syndicate waited too, both sides ready for the moment the silence would break. The air was heavy, the kind of stillness that came before something violent. John stood near the door, Vera beside him, the children hidden in the corner behind a stack of woven blankets. Outside, there was no sound, even the usual distant hum of the alien quarter had gone quiet. It was like the whole street was holding its breath. Then it began. A faint scrape on the roof, a quick tap against the wall. The rhythm was strange, too steady to be random. "They are signaling each other," Vera whispered. John tightened his grip on the metal wrench in his right hand. His traps were armed. The wire along the doorframe connected to the old battery. The flash device under the window was ready, but traps were only useful for the first few seconds. After that, it would be him against them. A sudden thump hit the roof. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. John's eyes darted upward. Another thump came. Closer to the door this time. "They're finding their way in," he muttered, without warning. The narrow window shattered. A black, insect-like arm reached inside. The claws glinted in the plant light. John didn't think he triggered the flash device. A burst of blinding white light filled the room. A screech followed as the arm pulled back. Outside, angry voices hissed. In an alien tongue, "They will not wait any longer," Vera said. Her voice was calm. To calm, she moved toward the children. Placing herself between them and the door, the first strike came hard. The metal door rattled under the force. Then came another. On the third hit, the door swung inward. But the moment the intruder stepped through, the wire trap snapped. A violent surge of electric current shot up its body. The alien screamed, its limbs jerking wildly before collapsing just outside the threshold. Another shape appeared behind it, tall, thin, with a head shaped like a crescent blade. It stepped over the fallen one. Moving with a slow, deliberate pace, John swung the wrench hard. It connected with the alien's arm. A sick crack echoed in the room. But the alien didn't fall. Instead, it hissed and swung back. The claws missed John's face by inches, cutting through the fabric of his sleeve. Two more figures slipped in through the broken window. They moved low, like predators circling prey. John's pulse pounded in his ears. He shifted his stance. The narrow space of the room made it harder for them to surround him. But it also meant he couldn't back away far. Vera shouted something in the alien tongue. One of the intruders hesitated. It glanced at her. She used that moment to grab a heavy ceramic pot from the table and slam it into the creature's head. It staggered back, but another replaced it instantly. Rel threw something from the corner, a sharp crystal shard. It hit one of the attackers in the leg. The alien shrieked, turning toward the boy, but before it could take a step, John was on it. He swung the wrench down with all his strength. The alien fell, twitching, and didn't rise. More shadows moved outside. They weren't retreating. If anything, more were arriving. John's breathing was rough. He glanced at Vera. "We can't hold them off forever. We do not need forever," she said. "We need until my signal is answered." "Signal?" John asked between breaths, but before she could explain, the doorframe splintered under another blow. A massive alien ducked inside. Its skin was a dark, metallic green. Its eyes glowed faint red. It carried no weapon. It didn't need one. Its arms were thick as John's legs. The sight made even the Syndicate thugs hesitate. John backed up. The thing moved forward, slow and certain. Vera's hand shot to her belt. Pulling out a small, round device, she pressed it to the wall, and it began to emit a deep, pulsing tone. The big alien lunged. John sidestepped, shoving the wrench into the side of its knee. It barely slowed. It swung one massive arm, and John felt the wind as it passed inches from his head. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the fight. A piercing whistle. Unlike anything John had heard before, it came from outside. The attackers froze. Even the massive alien turned toward the sound. Vera's eyes flicked to John. "They are here," she said. "Who?" John asked. "My people, from the street." More figures appeared. But these were different. They wore curved armor that shimmered like liquid silver. Their weapons were long staffs tipped with glowing ends. The Syndicate hesitated. One of the armored Tirith stepped forward. His voice was loud and clear. "This home is under Tirith protection." The Syndicate hissed and spat in their alien language. But one by one, they began to back away. The massive green alien glared at John, then turned and followed the others into the shadows. Silence returned to the room. John's muscles ached. His ears rang from the noise. Vera stood tall, her children. Clinging to her sides, she gave John a small nod. "You stood your ground," she said. He exhaled. "Yeah. But I think I just made some dangerous enemies." The Syndicate was gone. The armored Tirith guards stood at the street entrance, silent and watchful. The air inside Vera's home still carried the scent of broken stone and burnt metal. The plants swayed faintly, disturbed by the chaos that had filled the room only moments ago. John leaned against the wall. His chest rose and fell with slow, heavy breaths. The wrench in his hand felt heavier than before. Across the room, Rel and Mina were whispering to each other. Their voices were quiet, but their eyes stayed fixed on him. Vera moved closer. She placed her hand lightly on his arm. "You fought well," she said. "You fought like one of us." John shook his head. "I fought because I had to. If I hadn't, they would have taken you, taken them." Her golden eyes studied him for a long moment. "You understand now," she said. "This is what life here is. Danger does not knock only once. It waits, it circles. It returns." John's gaze moved to the open window. The broken glass still glittered faintly in the plant light, somewhere beyond those dark streets. The Syndicate was regrouping. They had been forced back tonight. But he knew they weren't finished. The armored Tirith leader stepped inside. His armor shimmered like water under sunlight. "You are human," he said flatly. His voice carried no anger, just fact. "You have no place in this quarter." John straightened. "I was invited," he said, "by her." He nodded toward Vera. The guard's golden eyes flicked between them. "She claims you as protector," he said. "That is not a title to be given lightly. Once accepted, it is binding under Tirith law. If you take it, you take her life as yours. And hers as yours." John felt the weight of the words. Vera's face was calm, but he could see the faint tension in her jaw. She wasn't sure what he would choose. Why not let her protect herself? John asked. "She is capable." The guard shook his head. "Our law does not see capability. It sees status, and a widow without a mate is prey. Our people will honor this claim if you make it, but you will never again be only human. You will be bound to our world." And to our enemies, the room was silent. Even the children had stopped whispering. Vera stepped closer. "You do not owe me this," she said softly. "You could leave. You could return to your life. Forget this night." John looked at her, then at Rel, then at Mina. He saw the faint hope in their eyes, the same hope he'd seen the first night she knocked on his door. The truth was, there wasn't much for him to return to. An empty workshop, cold nights, and silence. A life without anyone who would miss him if he didn't come back. He exhaled slowly. "Then, I guess I'm not leaving," he said. "If your law says I'm their protector, then that's what I'll be." Vera's lips curved in the smallest of smiles. Her hand rested against his shoulder. "Then we are bound," she said. "In the eyes of my people, you are now one of us." The guard gave a short nod. "Then you will be given the mark," he said. From a pouch at his side, he pulled a thin silver band with carved symbols, the same kind John had seen on Vera's arm. He placed it on John's wrist. It tightened automatically, the metal warming against his skin. John felt a faint vibration through it, like a heartbeat, only it wasn't his. "This will tell our people who you are," the guard said, "and it will tell your enemies as well." When the guards left, silence returned, but it was different now. John's place in this home was no longer temporary. He had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The children came to him. Rel stood straight, almost proud. Mina wrapped her small arms around his leg. "You're staying," she said softly. John nodded. "Yeah, I'm staying." Vera began clearing the broken glass. John joined her for a moment. It felt almost normal to people tidying up after a rough night. But outside, in the shadows of the alien quarter, unseen eyes were still watching. Later. When the children were asleep, John sat near the door. The silver band on his wrist caught the dim light. He turned it slowly, feeling the weight of the decision he had made. Vera sat across from him, her gaze steady. "You know they will come again," she said. John nodded. "I'm counting on it." Somewhere outside. Far down the narrow street, the low mechanical hum began again. Steady. Patient, it moved away into the night, like a predator retreating, but not gone, never gone.